Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. How much of what you believe is actually true? Not what you think is true. Not what you've been told is true. But something you've actually seen, experienced, and understood for yourself. We live in a world where the illusion is so complete that we no longer recognize it as illusion. We are like fish that don't realize they are swimming in water. But make no mistake, the whole thing is a hoax. Yes, I said it. The stories you were told about how the world works. The myths of progress, power, and control. The deep-seated trust in institutions, leaders, and systems that promise to protect you. It's all part of the show. But here's the real kicker. You're not just a spectator. You're in it. You've been playing a role in the grand deception without even realizing it. And if you don't wake up to it, you will continue to act out a script that was never yours to begin with. So stay with me. Because by the time we're done, you won't see things the same way again. We are told from birth to trust. Trust your parents. Trust your teachers. Trust the news, the government, the scientists, the experts. Trust the process. But trust is a delicate thing, isn't it? It's easy to give, hard to regain, and almost never questioned. And that is precisely why it's the perfect tool for deception. Think about it. What if the whole structure of your reality was built on a foundation of trust in things that were never real? What if you were told to trust not because it was right, but because it made you easier to control? Why do people cling to the hoax? Simple. Fear. Fear is the glue that holds the illusion together. It keeps you looking to authority for protection. It makes you afraid to step outside the boundaries of what is acceptable to think. It convinces you that questioning is dangerous. Throughout history, the greatest hoaxes have always used fear as a weapon. Fear of the unknown, fear of enemies, fear of scarcity, fear of being cast out. The result? You obey, you comply, and you stop asking dangerous questions. Now, let's talk about the one thing that exposes every great deception: money. If you ever want to understand why something is the way it is, follow the money. The most convincing hoaxes are not just illusions, they are investments. Someone profits from your belief. Someone benefits from your compliance. This isn't conspiracy, it's business. And the best business in the world is the one where the customer never even realizes they're being sold something. So what do you do when you realize the whole thing is a hoax? Do you become angry? Bitter? Hopeless? No, you wake up. Doubt is not your enemy. It is your greatest ally. The moment you start questioning, the moment you stop blindly believing, that's when you take back your power. You don't need to be told what to trust. You don't need someone to hand you the truth. You need to see for yourself. So here's the truth. Yes, the whole thing is a hoax. But does that mean you should live in paranoia? No, quite the opposite. Once you see the illusion, you're free. You no longer have to play the game on someone else's terms. You no longer have to accept the roles given to you. You can start living, really living, instead of just performing a script. Because the moment you stop believing in the hoax, it loses all of its power over you. Now the question is, what will you do with that freedom? Trust is a peculiar thing. It is the invisible glue that holds societies together, the foundation upon which civilizations are built. From the moment we are born, we are taught to trust our parents to feed us, trust our teachers to educate us, trust our leaders to guide us. But here's the problem. Trust, when given without question, becomes the perfect tool for deception. And that is where the hoax begins. Consider how trust operates in your daily life. When you board an airplane, you trust the pilot knows how to fly. When you take medicine, you trust that the pharmaceutical company has your best interests at heart. When you read the news, you trust that journalists are telling you the truth. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself why you trust these things? Is it because you have personally verified them, or because you were conditioned to accept them as reality? Trust, as it turns out, is rarely based on personal experience. Instead, it is handed down through layers of authority: parents trusting teachers, teachers trusting books, books trusting institutions, institutions trusting experts. And at each step, a small assumption is made that those before us were right. But what happens when the foundation of this chain is flawed? The entire structure remains standing, not because it is true, but because no one dares to question it. And here lies the paradox. Trust is essential for a functioning society, yet it is also the easiest way to control people. The more you trust, the less you verify. The less you verify, the easier it becomes to deceive you. Throughout history, trust has been exploited by those in power. Religious institutions once held absolute control over societies, not because their teachings were irrefutable, but because people were conditioned to trust their authority without question. Governments have waged wars not because they were necessary, but because citizens were told to trust their leaders. Financial institutions have crashed economies not because of unpredictable circumstances, but because people blindly trusted the system to be fair. Now, some might say, but we need trust. Without trust, everything falls apart. And that is exactly the mechanism that keeps the hoax alive. The idea that questioning trust is dangerous, that skepticism is disruptive, is part of the illusion itself. If you are afraid to question, you will never see the deception. If you never see the deception, you remain trapped within it. So here's the real question. What happens when you stop trusting blindly? What happens when you begin to verify for yourself, to test what you have been told, to see the world with your own eyes rather than through the lens of those who benefit from your compliance? The answer is both liberating and unsettling. It means taking responsibility for your own understanding rather than outsourcing it to authority. It means stepping into the unknown rather than relying on the comfortable narratives you have been fed. It means, perhaps for the first time, truly waking up. Fear is the oldest and most effective tool of control. It has shaped human behavior for as long as history has been recorded. It drives people to act against their own interests, to surrender their freedom, to accept absurdities simply because they are afraid of the alternative. Fear makes the irrational seem logical, the unreasonable seem necessary. It is the foundation of every great deception, and it is the primary reason the hoax continues unchallenged. Think about it. When was the last time you made a decision purely out of fear? Maybe it was small, like avoiding a conversation because you feared confrontation. Maybe it was bigger, like staying in a job you hate because you fear uncertainty. Now, expand that concept to society as a whole. How many of the biggest decisions people make are actually driven by logic, and how many are based on fear? The answer, when you truly see it, is staggering. Fear makes people easy to manage. When a population is afraid, it stops thinking critically. It looks to authority for safety. It stops asking questions. It falls in line. That is why fear is constantly manufactured and distributed in carefully measured doses. The governments tell you to fear the enemy. The news tells you to fear the unknown. The economy tells you to fear scarcity. Religion tells you to fear divine punishment. Science, when corrupted, tells you to fear nature itself. And every time you accept that fear without question, you tighten your own chains. But here's the most interesting part. Fear doesn't need to be real to be effective. It just needs to be believed. A person who is afraid of ghosts doesn't need to see one to be terrified. Just the thought is enough. The same principle applies to society. The threat does not have to be true. It just has to be convincing. How many wars have been fought over dangers that never existed? How many laws have been passed to protect people from threats that were exaggerated or even fabricated? How many rights have been surrendered, not because people wanted to, but because they were made to believe there was no other choice? And this is the cycle. Fear is created, fear is amplified, and fear is used as justification for control. Each time it works because people believe that surrendering their freedom will bring them safety. But history has shown, time and time again, that those who trade freedom for security end up with neither. So why does the fear factory continue to operate? Because fear is profitable. Fear sells products. Fear wins elections. Fear keeps people obedient. And as long as people accept fear without question, the hoax remains intact. The real question is, what happens when you stop being afraid? What happens when you realize that most of the fear you feel has been implanted in you, not for your benefit, but for the benefit of those who profit from your compliance? If you ever want to uncover the truth behind any deception, there's a simple rule to follow: follow the money. The greatest hoaxes in history weren't accidents, misunderstandings, or coincidences. They were profitable enterprises. The world, as it turns out, doesn't run on truth or justice. It runs on incentives. And the most powerful incentive of all is money. Look around you. Every system you interact with, the government, the media, the pharmaceutical industry, the financial markets, is ultimately a business. And like any business, its primary goal is not to help you, not to enlighten you, and certainly not to liberate you. Its goal is to extract value from you while keeping you convinced that it's acting in your best interest. The genius of the system is that it makes you believe you are free while ensuring you are always playing within its carefully crafted rules. Consider the news industry. Do you think its main purpose is to inform you? Hardly. The news thrives on fear, scandal, and controversy because that's what keeps people engaged. The more afraid or outraged you are, the longer you watch, the more advertisements you consume, and the more money flows in. Your attention is the product, sold to the highest bidder. And yet, millions still believe the news exists to serve the public good. Think about the pharmaceutical industry. Is its goal to cure illness or to create lifetime customers? If you get sick, you enter a system designed to manage your symptoms, not eliminate them. Why? Because cures are far less profitable than treatments. A healthy person is worthless to the industry, but a chronically ill person who depends on medication for life is a goldmine. And yet we are told to trust the science without ever questioning who funds that science. Look at the education system. It claims to prepare young minds for the future, but what does it actually do? It conditions people to follow orders, memorize information without questioning it, and seek approval from authority figures. It does not teach financial independence, critical thinking, or self-sufficiency, because an educated, financially free, and independent thinker is dangerous to the system. Instead, it trains people to become obedient workers, perfectly molded to fuel the economy, while never realizing they are trapped in it. Even democracy, the so-called voice of the people, is a business. Elections cost billions, and the winners are rarely the most honest or capable candidates. They are the ones with the most financial backing. Every political campaign is an investment, and those who fund it expect a return. Do you really believe that policies are crafted for your benefit, or are they designed to serve the interests of those who paid for them? And this is the grand deception. The world is not what it seems. You are not simply living in a society, you are living inside a massive, multi-layered economic machine where every major institution profits from your participation. You are led to believe that you have choices, that you are making informed decisions, but in reality, the game was rigged before you ever started playing. Doubt is a strange thing. From an early age, we are taught that skepticism is a problem, that questioning too much is disruptive, even dangerous. We are told to trust the experts, believe the authorities, follow the rules. But have you ever stopped to wonder why doubt is so heavily discouraged? Why does every major institution, from government to religion to science, demand your trust without question? It's because skepticism is not a weakness, it is power. The moment you start questioning, the illusion begins to break. Society thrives on certainty. People want to feel safe, to believe they have a solid understanding of reality. And so, they cling to whatever narrative is most widely accepted, even when it contradicts logic or evidence. If the majority believes something, it must be true, right? But history has shown time and time again that the majority is often wrong. The greatest deceptions of all time were accepted as truth simply because people were too afraid to question them. The earth was once believed to be flat. Witches were once burned because people truly thought they were summoning demons. Entire nations have been led into war based on lies that no one dared to challenge. The pattern is always the same. Blind belief leads to manipulation. But here's the real secret. Skepticism doesn't mean rejecting everything. It doesn't mean believing in nothing. It means refusing to accept something just because someone told you to. It means demanding evidence, asking uncomfortable questions, and being willing to admit when something doesn't add up. The real danger is not in doubting, it is in accepting things blindly. Look at how easily people give up their own reasoning when confronted with authority. A scientist in a lab coat, a politician in a suit, a journalist with a microphone, these symbols of credibility make people stop thinking for themselves. If a news anchor says it, it must be true. If a study claims it, it must be fact. If a leader enforces it, it must be necessary. But why? Because we are conditioned to believe that questioning authority is foolish, rebellious, even dangerous. And that conditioning is exactly how the system keeps its power. The truth is, the most revolutionary thing you can do is to question everything. Not with paranoia, not with blind cynicism, but with a clear and an open mind. Who benefits from you believing what you believe? Who profits from your trust? What happens if you test these ideas for yourself instead of taking them at face value? Skepticism is not the enemy of truth, it is the path to it. The only people who fear questions are those who have something to hide. Once you begin to see the patterns, once you recognize the illusion for what it is, something irreversible happens, you cannot unsee it. The veil has been lifted, and suddenly everything looks different. The systems you once trusted, the beliefs you once held without question, the institutions you thought were working for your benefit, all of them appear as part of a grand design, not to liberate you, but to keep you in place. This is the moment of awakening, the realization that the world you were taught to believe in is not the world as it truly is. But here's the paradox. Waking up doesn't necessarily bring comfort. In fact, it can be deeply unsettling. The truth is not always easy to accept. It can be harsh, it can be isolating, and it can make you feel like an outsider in a world that still believes in the illusion. Many people, upon reaching this point, face a choice: either retreat back into the safety of the familiar, pretending they never saw the truth, or step fully into the unknown, accepting the burden of awareness. The hardest part of waking up is realizing that most people don't want to. They are invested in the hoax. They have built their entire lives around these illusions, and then to question them would mean unraveling everything they hold dear. If you try to tell them, they resist, they ridicule, they fight back. Not because they have proof that you're wrong, but because your doubt threatens their comfort. And so many choose to stay asleep, not because they lack intelligence, but because they fear what waking up might cost them. But you are different. You would not have made it this far if you weren't already questioning. And that is where true power lies, because once you have seen through the deception, you no longer have to play by its rules. You are no longer bound by the same fears, the same false choices, the same invisible chains that hold others down. You realize that the real battle was never about external control, it was always about perception. The hoax only has power over those who believe in it. At first, this knowledge can feel overwhelming. You might wonder, what now? What do I do with this understanding? And the answer is simple: you live. Not by the scripts handed to you, not by the expectations imposed upon you, but by your own truth. You stop waiting for permission. You stop fearing what others think. You start seeing life as it really is: limitless, open, full of possibility. Because the final awakening is not just seeing through the hoax, it is realizing that you were never truly trapped to begin with. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that everything you thought was real, your beliefs, your identity, your understanding of the world, was not actually yours. It was given to you. installed like a program in a machine, not through force, but through something far more subtle conditioning. From the moment you were born, you were fed a script, a carefully designed narrative about what life is, who you are, and how the world works. And because you never knew anything else, you accepted it as reality. But what if that reality was an illusion? What if the whole thing, everything you've been told to trust, to obey, to fear, was nothing more than a hope? The genius of this illusion is that it doesn't need walls to keep you inside. Unlike a traditional prison, there are no guards, no chains, no locked doors. The only thing keeping you trapped is belief. The moment you accept the rules of the game, you start playing without even realizing it. You chase success because you were told it matters. You seek approval because you were conditioned to value it. You obey because you were trained to equate authority with truth. But what if none of it was real? Look around you. Everything in the modern world operates on systems of control, yet people believe they are free. They believe their choices are their own, that they are independent thinkers, that they live in a world built on fairness and logic. But in reality, every major system, education, media, government, economics, is designed not to liberate, but to confine. Schools don't teach you how to think, they teach you how to conform. The news doesn't inform, it persuades. Governments don't serve the people, they manage them. The economy doesn't reward hard work, it exploits it. But because these systems are all you've ever known, you don't question them. You assume this is just how the world works. And that is the essence of the hoax, to make you believe that your cage is your home, that the limits imposed on you are natural, and that to question them is foolish. The illusion is so complete that people will defend it, even fight for it, because it feels more comfortable than uncertainty. And so they remain asleep, living within a dream someone else designed for them. But there is a way out, not by force, not by rebellion, but by simply seeing. The moment you recognize the illusion for what it is, it begins to lose its power over you. The moment you stop believing in the hoax, it collapses. Because the truth is, the world is not what you were told. Reality is far bigger, far stranger, and far more open than you've ever been led to believe. The only question that remains is, will you wake up? So here we are at the edge of the illusion. You've seen the patterns, the control mechanisms, the way fear, trust, money, and conditioning work together to shape the world around you. The hoax is not a single lie, it is a system, a carefully woven fabric of half-truths and hidden manipulations designed to keep you in place. And the most brilliant part? It never needed to force you. It only needed you to believe in it. But now you know, and once you know, you can never truly go back. You can pretend you can play along, but deep down, something has changed. You are no longer just another piece on the board, you are aware of the game itself. And that awareness is freedom. Because here's the real secret, the hoax only works if you participate in it. The moment you stop believing, stop obeying out of fear, stop accepting the scripts handed to you, the illusion begins to break. The world is not a fixed reality, it is a canvas shaped by perception, belief, and action. Those who wake up don't just see the truth, they create it. So the choice is yours. You can dismiss this, retreat back into the comfortable embrace of the familiar, pretend none of this ever resonated with you. Or you can step forward, not just as an observer, but as someone who dares to live beyond the illusion. The hoax was never real. The only thing that ever gave it power was belief.